Perfect. Hello there, everyone. We are just going to be filtering in and giving folks a couple of minutes before kicking off the webinar in full. And I'm going to be sharing my screen, which you should see coming up right now. Perfect. So for quick question to the panelists, can everyone see my screen?
Yeah, Josh can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So we'll give folks another 1 minute to join, and then we will kick off the webinar in earnest. And just for folks who are joining the call right now, if you see me looking off to my left, I'm very much engaged in the webinar. I've just got a second screen where I've got a few notes that I'll be looking at and some of the questions. So, quick question. Which of, so John, I believe you're around the central time zone in the US. I've been hearing a lot about the blizzards and storms hitting the East Coast. Has that filtered across over to the middle of the US yet?
No, I think most of the my friends and colleagues on the East Coast are dealing with about a foot to 2 feet of snow. I have some students here in California with me who managed to get out of the East Coast time zone before the blizzard hit, and they said
Mm-hmm.
that like maybe Western Pennsylvania, further west, was unscathed. So,
Ah, gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah, we've got a company meetup here at Feedly and had some colleagues who barely made it out off the East Coast to come and join us over in the West Coast. So it sounds like it's getting pretty serious.
I would happily take any snow in Colorado. We are in a deficit this year, and we love snow.
Mm. Well, I'll try and send some over.
Yes, send the good vibes this way.
Okay, perfect. Now, looking at the time, we are at 3 minutes past the hour, so I'll kick off. I'll begin with a quick introduction and then we'll move into some housekeeping. So, hello, folks. For those of you who have not met me, I'm Josh and I work at Feedly. I've been here for the past 3.5 years and started out on the client team and have since moved into a more strategic role that lets me engage in more of these community-based initiatives, which I really enjoy. I'm super excited about this conversation because we are talking about one of my favorite topics, and that is CTI career strategy. And we're going to focus on some really practical advice, speaking to some leaders in the industry and asking them for all of their insights when it comes to talking about promotions and pivoting and jumping around um, uh, in order to give as much advice as we can to folks who are either um, moving from or thinking about moving from an individual contributor role up into a management role, or they're just thinking about like what to do next and how they can advance from management into leadership. So we are going to make this session as interactive as possible. And yes, this session is being recorded. We will send you the recording after the workshop, and we'll also be sending out the slides as well. If you have a question, we do encourage you to ask it, and I'll be taking questions throughout the entire discussion. And the way that you can ask it is just by using the Q&A box. So that is going to be the avenue to use. Don't raise your hand. Instead, just type your question into the box, and I'll get to it as soon as I can. Right, let's jump into. So I've got a couple of slides to kick us off, and then we'll jump into the full conversation. To begin with, I'll give some context on Feedly for those of you who are newer to the platform. The way to think about Feedly is it's a SaaS platform that enables you to take open web sources that focus on cybersecurity content, bring them all into a central place where all of that kind of unstructured, messy data then gets structured. We analyze it and then we tag different entities relevant to cyber threat intelligence. So in a typical article coming from a cyber news media outlet, we'll tag all of the IOCs, the companies, the threat actors, so on and so forth. And then we take all of that information and we map it to a threat graph. And this helps us map all of the relationships between the different entities. So we can, if there's an article talking about a threat actor targeting a certain industry and certain victims, we'll have all of that mapped out. And we've been doing this for a while. We've had AI models set up to be tagging different entities. And that was set up maybe, I think the first model was published about 5 or 6 years ago. So we have now built up quite a large threat graph that operates in the background of the platform. And you can see here that we've got some of the statistics about how many threat actors and CVEs and malware families that we've collected. And then we make all of that information in the threat graph accessible. And you can query the threat graph and produce different outputs using different tools in the platform. So we have Intel agents, AI feeds that let you set up monitoring and filtering using different AI models and Boolean operators. There's an Ask AI feature that lets you ask questions of the threat graph. And then we've got a report builder to help you speed up the process from discovering intelligence to processing it and producing a report you can send out to your stakeholders. And then for stakeholders who want a more like regular cadence of updates, we do have an automated newsletter feature. And then finally, we've got some integrations and an MCP server. So in terms of how you want to query the threat graph, there's a lot of different options available to you. And the last thing I'll say about Feedly is we do offer a 30-day free trial. So we'll post a link in the chat. And you'll probably see one of my colleagues, Gabby, who will be posting a bunch of useful links and resources throughout the webinar. So if you have any questions about Feedly, you can also ask her in the chat and she'll answer them live during the workshop. Right, that's Feedly. Now let's talk about our panelists. So I'm super excited to bring these three individuals into the same room. We have got years of experience and some really exciting experience and job titles between these three individuals. So I've left in their job titles here on this slide. They will introduce themselves, but I just want to point out that we do have some really experienced high-level leaders here. We've got a head of cyber threat management, we've got a senior SecEng and CTI manager, and we've got a director of CTI services. So just think about the journeys these folks have been on. They've gone through all sorts of different job roles and pivots and promotions inside the CTI space, and I could not think of more perfect people to ask to be part of this panel. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves, and I'm going to begin with Sam. Can you please come off mute and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. So, yeah, my name's Sam Flockhart. So, I am the head of cyber threat management at a major UK-based bank. My journey into CTI started with through the military. So, I joined the British Army, and I had a career doing military intelligence, mostly on sort of the kinetic space, kind of terrorist operations, things like that. Um, I then started to work alongside government organizations, working out of foreign offices and embassies in Beijing, China, and other places around the world. Again, practicing that sort of intelligence tradecraft in a different remit. And then during COVID, I then decided to transition into cyber and joined financial services in cyber threat intelligence, which has been really good so far. In my current organization, this is my third CTI team, so I've experienced sort of three different CTI teams so far, and obviously kind of done that more linear career progression to the point where I get to have some fun, with some of the red team activities and on the cyber fraud fusion front as well. So that's a little bit about my background so far.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Sam. And Bianca, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Bianca Miclea. I'm currently the lead of CTI and Security Engineering at a major UK-based financial company. I've been in the industry for around 9, 10 years now, kind of jumping around a little bit between CTI, consulting, client-facing, internal, and now, as you can see, doing a bit of security engineering as well. So dipping my toes around to try and see what different areas of cyber are and learning from them, which has been a great experience applying that to CTI. So I'm excited to speak to you all today.
Likewise, and I think it's going to be so helpful to have someone with that experience outside of CTI who's also been bringing it into it. Yeah, I've got a ton of questions I want to ask in that domain. But before I ask any more questions, John, tell us about yourself.
Hey, good morning, everyone. My name is John Doyle. I'm the Director of Cyber Threat Intelligence Services over at Palo Alto Unit 42, and I also teach the SAN CTI course. I've kind of got my starting in CTI working for the CIA and got really smart on all the different intrusion sets and trends before focusing on North Korea, Russia, eventually making my way over to Mandiant, working there, helping build programs, working directly with client and teams and seeing what growth pathways look like. And most recently, moving over to Palo Alto about a year ago to help with the commercialization of their threat research.
Perfect. And John, I heard a rumor that you might be co-authoring a SANS course. Is that true?
Just maybe. Yeah, just maybe. Yeah, there's a intro to CTI course in the works right now to help with some of the programmatic uplift and things that'll really help set up a new analyst or somebody who's just in the field for a little bit for success in their career. More to come on
Very
that soon,
interesting.
Josh.
Excellent. I look forward to hearing more. Now we have a tradition with these CTI sessions here at Feedly. This was started by Sean, who you'll see hosting a lot of these webinars, and it's become one of my favorite things about them. And it is the finish the sentence icebreaker. So for this, I'm just going to start a sentence, and then you need to finish it straight away. And the first answer is the right answer. Don't overthink it, and just give us your most honest answer. So the first one is the best book I've read recently is John.
Oof. Recently? Geez, that's a
Hmm.
tough one. I've been reading a book more on different management pathways and styles to help
Oh, perfect.
with soft skill development and how to communicate and resonate with various audiences. So that's been helpful for me for the direction I've chosen to go recently, where I'm now expanding kind of my role and remit. It really helps provide additional perspective.
And it's also perfect revision for this webinar. So thanks for doing that. Sam, best book you've read recently?
For me, I read The Future of Geography by Tim Marshall, so a UK-based author who talks about basically the militarization of space and how we fought over geography on planet Earth, and we're going to start doing that in space. So it's a really brilliant book by Tim Marshall. Would recommend.
Wow. And not at all terrifying.
It's good. It's good.
Yeah, excellent. Super interesting topic, especially when you see like just how many low orbital satellites are going up right now. Like I came across a statistic that SpaceX has around 7,000, and then Amazon's program they want to put another 3,000 like into space by the end of this calendar year. So it's getting busy up there. And Bianca, the best book you've read recently is.
Um, so I kind of got two, but one I'm not sure counts as reading. So Intelligence is Beautiful. It's a really good book, but you're gonna if you do end up getting it or if you read it, it's not really reading. It's full of
Mhm.
different pictures basically. So it talks about how to present data in different formats and how to sell your story, which is really interesting. It's not really a book per se though, so I will not cheat and say the other one that's an actual book. It's probably, I would say, started why. Really good book
Mhm.
about basically putting why at the front of everything you do. So that was quite interesting in terms of psychological impact that it has on teams and yourself, and just selling what you do. Always start with why.
These are excellent book choices. Okay, great one. And now, Bianca, we're going to stick with you. My favorite hobby at the moment is
Ooh, drawing. I'm not very good
drawing.
at it though.
That's all right. I'm a crap painter, but I still have to paint. Sam, favorite hobby at the moment?
Well, probably teaching my kids how to play chess. I've got my oldest girl is 6, so I love chess. I'm having a lot of fun teaching her how to play. It's quite funny.
That's amazing. Yeah, my dad taught me how to play chess, and it's like genuinely some of my favorite memories. Because I'm like one of five, and of course we never had much like one-on-one time, but the chess was like just our thing. So yeah, great thing to teach your kids. And then John, favorite hobby at the moment?
Probably my Dungeons and Dragon campaign that we're in right now. We're at a really kind of cool inflection point in the story. Things are about to get real serious next session. I don't know if our characters are going to die. We're going to see how that's going to play out.
Oh, sweet. Okay, I look forward to hearing more about that, and good luck to your main character. Great answers, guys. I really appreciate the book recommendations and also learning more a little bit about how you spend your spare time. Right now, let's talk about our agenda. So, we have five themes to shape our conversation today. And these are going to start out with the foundations. So, like looking at some foundational questions about CTI, and then moving into knowing when you're ready for management, the realities of leadership, what non-linear paths and lateral moves look like in CTI, and then sustaining a long-term career and forward planning. Now, I've got a ton of questions. We probably won't get to all of them, but I will aim to ask at least one question in each of these domains. And as mentioned, for you audience members, if you've got a burning question, ask it, and I'll get to it as soon as possible. And I'm also going to ask you some questions. So we want to make sure this is highly relevant to the audience that we have here today. And we're going to ask you some questions to get to know you better and to understand who we have here in the call. So we are going to pop up an audience poll question. And this is for you folks to answer to tell us a bit more about yourself so that we know how to shape the conversation. So you should now see a pop-up that's just emerged. And the question is, where are you currently in your CTI career? This will tell us if we should spend more time talking about questions to do with management or being a senior analyst or leadership and long-term planning. So if you can all fill in the question, I'm seeing responses come flying in. If I bring this into the center, can you folks see it? Okay, excellent. So we can see of the 102 people who have joined, 77 have answered so far, so we're at around 76%. And we've got Senior Analyst as the top job title right now. And also coming in second are Junior Analysts. So I'm really happy to see this, as this will tell us a lot about which questions we want to spend some time on, or more time on, I should say. So thank you all, thank you to those who have responded so far. Senior Analyst, it looks like the top job title, but don't worry, we will ask questions relevant to everyone. And this just tells us a bit more about yourself. So what I'm now going to do is stop screen sharing, but I will be bringing up the presentation later on when we ask more audience questions, and we're going to jump into the actual discussion portion. So let's start at the start. A couple of questions that I've always been curious about and that kind of relate towards the early start of the career is how you ended up in CTI. So John, I'm going to start off with you. Was your journey planned when it came to your pathway into CTI, or you just kind of stumble into it in an unconventional way?
Yeah, I think stumble into it is a very polite way of saying that. Yeah, my background is in business IT. I did a little bit of information security and quantitative economics, all in the same kind of academic setting. My inflection point was the economy in the US had collapsed. I had to figure out what was going to be the next step. So I went the grad school route and in information security, could have gone a PhD in economics and maybe I wouldn't be where I am today. But it kind of naturally just lent itself to landing a job in government space where talent was needed at that point in time. And that's the story. That's kind of where we landed. It was very unstructured, unplanned, but even throughout kind of my journey, you make deliberate decisions, but as long as you're willing to be open and flexible, I think you're setting yourself up for a really cool and interesting career.
Yeah, very nice. And did you know that CTI was a possible career path when you were still studying?
No, digital forensics wasn't really a career path either. That's the route that I was
Hmm.
starting to go down. I thought it would be the coolest thing to be like a private eye, trying to help companies like save money and brand and all like very aspirational, high level motivations. Um, and finding myself in kind of a threat intel role was in a lot of ways satisfying because it was still scratching those high level drivers that I was looking for.
Excellent. And actually, yeah, open question to Sam and Bianca. Was CTI part of your plan? Did you know it was a possible career path, or did you just kind of discover it along the way?
No, I fell into it as well.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, my background, I was the intelligencer, right? I wanted, to continue, the intelligence career, and the
Hmm.
cyber part kind of came along with that because of the opportunities that existed at the time. So
Hmm.
it was net cyber. I never saw myself doing cyber. I never planned to prepare for it. It was more I saw opportunities that meant I could use some of the skills that I had, the transferable skills, and then the sort of cyber bit came later.
Interesting. So we're all happy accidents because I'm the same way. I had no idea that this was a possible career path until I did this internship as a global risk intelligence analyst in the private sector, and then it was like this window into this whole world that I had no idea existed. and to learn that every large company, or like most companies in the private sector have Intel teams, just like blew my mind because this is not something that you're often taught until you hit the space, and then it's just yeah, it's this whole world you can jump into. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question. It's a bit cliche, but it's one of my all-time favorite questions, so I'm gonna ask it without any shame. What's one piece of career advice you wish you had when you were starting out in CTI? And Sam, kick us off there.
Yeah, so I think when I was starting off into CTI, I think it's a case of making the most of the opportunities, and also, it's I think no matter what you do in cyber, every day is a school day, right? You're learning by osmosis. You're learning by the types of incidents that's you're learning from other teams. Every single Teams call or session call is going to be an opportunity to learn. But it's almost okay. Learn what those opportunities are. Learn what you enjoy doing. Which part of the skill set, the tradecraft is it that you want, that you enjoy looking at, that you think you're good at, and then I think it's a case of using those opportunities to show what you can do, and explore the sort of different things that are available. Learn what other cyber teams do. Don't stay siloed. And I think it's the one guiding principle for all these things is curiosity, right? It's the people that make the best cyber threat intelligencers, analysts, managers, whatever, are the people who ask a lot of questions, think about questions, and are curious. And if you're that way inclined, then you will learn a lot, even if you're at the start of your career.
Excellent, excellent advice there. John?
Yeah, be open and be flexible. So many times people want to roll out on initiatives and they're looking for supporting functions, people to step in and help out. It's a really good way to get broad exposure on topics that perhaps you might not be the subject matter expertise on. Um, that was I got to kind of surge support for a lot of crises, so I was able to develop both breadth and depth, and also see how other teams and partners inside of the organization were operating, which for me was a really cool experience. Because at some point you're gonna ideally look for, well, what comes next? Like, do they have a good
Hmm.
team? Is a good fit? And just take some of those best practices and try and improve the culture on your own team.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm hearing keeping an open mind and like trying different things and kind of staying flexible as a pretty common theme here. Okay, excellent. And we do have a couple of questions already from the audience, actually, quite a few questions, which is always great to see. And I've got a couple here that relate to the early stages of your career. So we're going to start with Nigel Boston's question. Looking back at your own CTI career, what was one promotion or pivot that most changed your trajectory, and what did you misunderstand about it at the time? So this is open to all panelists. And I will pick on
I can go
someone
first.
if
I can go
perfect.
first. I think, to be honest, I think every move I've made, and as I've mentioned, I've kind of moved across a little bit and jumped laterally quite a little bit. But every move I made has kind of been that stage for me of figuring out, okay, this is very different to what I used to do. This is a whole new learning opportunity. I started off client-facing CTI, moved into consulting because I felt like actually the recommendations I was providing and the reports I was writing, they were all great and really learned a lot. But I wasn't sure whether anyone is reading those, doing anything with those. So I wanted to see what else is there in the cyberspace. Went to consulting, did basically everything under the sun. So moving around from like data protection to suppliers to vulnerability management, GDPR became a big thing around the time as well. So learning a
Mhm.
lot there. And then again, moving from client-facing consulting and CTI back to CTI, but internal, that was another big decisive factor in my career as well, where actually it took a change in the way I thought about things and the way I've approached
Mhm.
things, because it was no longer we're doing this because the client asked for, and there's a clear kind of finish line. When you move internal, it was a change of mindset. Actually, this is now, you need to carry out the work to the end.
Hmm.
really understand why some recommendations that I was providing maybe actually made no sense, or they made sense, but we can't implement it because there's no budget, no scope. The business doesn't want to buy it. There's a whole shift in perspective, I think, for me, moving laterally and then moving from client facing to internal, or I guess vice versa as well.
Yeah, I think that that's a really interesting point because I went from working on in-house intelligence teams to now working at Feedly, where it's a vendor, and I was on the client team where I got to work with dozens and dozens and dozens of different CTI teams all across the world, different like types of maturity, different specializations, different use cases. And it just builds up this huge like pool of context because I went from being really deep knowing how like the organizations I worked for, one at a time, how they do CTI, to now just having this broad context. And that really does help you kind of tune into like what are the best practices, what works, what doesn't work. So yeah, it's really interesting that you pointed out the benefit of going from internal to like externally facing in something like consulting or a vendor and then going back in again, taking all those
Yeah.
lessons with you. Yeah, that's a
Yeah, I think
super
that
interesting
that's
point.
where I've learned most of my skills and most of my transferable skills, right? Not just technical stuff, but
Mm,
really understanding risk, stakeholders, really be able to speak those languages and translate
mhm.
the work that I'm doing into stakeholder worlds and language. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's so important. I keep hearing this in conferences, in webinars, like the need to translate things into the language of your stakeholders and to take threat and put it through an equation that translates it into risk. Like this is just
Yeah.
repeatedly coming up. Super interesting. John, Sam, any additional thoughts? Was there one particular pivot or promotion that was like hugely impactful in your career?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't necessarily one. It was more there was different flavors of CTI, the different organizations I worked for because of the different either styles that they had, the size, the scale. So obviously, if you go, you work for a much larger organization, has much more money in the projects, much more specializations across the cyber teams. The scale of what you're trying to achieve is obviously different to, a smaller firm where, you might have a CTI team of just one, for example. So, I've worked in smaller CTI teams where effectively you're the leader, you're building something that didn't exist before. That gives you then opportunities to put your own ideas across your own processes because there was nothing that there was ever there before, and so that then gives you an
Hmm.
opportunity to lead and be that, and gain a lot of confidence. The reason I left that organization was there just wasn't enough money to satisfy the ambitions I had. I think it was kind of my version of CTI was one that was a little bit more ambitious. So then I joined a sort of much bigger organization, but then that came with it. You were working, you had sort of other CTI bosses that have different visions to yourself, or that had already built something that was fairly mature, and you're kind of looking for different opportunities here and there so that you can really add your flavors and your value. And there's no one right way to do this. I don't think. I think each CTI team will have different capabilities depending on the organizations they are. And I think again, it's for me, it wasn't one trajectory. There was just I had three different, completely different experiences, three different structures, and each one has kind of taught me different things. So I think sometimes there is benefit of moving around, um,
Hmm.
and seeing how others do it, and then there's benefits of staying and actually building something that lasts the test of time and that you can look back and be really proud of. So everyone's going to have to find these different routes themselves. This is kind of the joy of the
Hmm.
game.
Yeah, 100%. And John, same question. Was there like a single promotion pivot, job change that completely changed your career path?
I think I'm going to recast your question just a little bit here, Josh. Getting passed up for promotion one time really helped solidify some concepts in my mind and allowed me to do some
Hmm.
introspection.
Hmm.
That the mobility that comes with influence and impact is not necessarily bounded to what level you're at, but rather how and where you are and who you're influencing. I was very, especially the early parts of my career, of the mindset that the path up is the path to influence, and that was very
Hmm.
not grounded in reality. But I didn't have the perspective at that time to really have those insights, and that that decision point and then subsequent conversations that followed and introspection really helped lend itself towards that actualization.
Introspection is a very interesting topic. Do you have like a structured method for your introspection, or is it just like time alone with your thoughts, and writing some things down?
Make time for it. It's very
Mm,
easy to let that go by the wayside. There's so many cool things we get to do in this field that, moving from one thing to the next, not accounting for it, not giving yourself time and space, or even structuring conversations with those around you, leadership and otherwise, often lend itself to only letting this happen naturally when it happens. So be intentional, be deliberate about taking the time to introspect, especially after you've had a
mm.
win. Like that's a really good time to ask yourself, like, how did this move the needle for me?
Yeah. Yeah, and I like to schedule reflection sessions. I found that doing it on airplanes is one of the best times because you're typically shut off from the internet. You've got no distractions. You're stuck there for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 hours. Like you may as well use that time productively, and like it can just be you and your thoughts. So yeah, that's one way that I've been doing it. You mentioned something else that I want to pick up. Probably one of the most useful skills that is applicable to analysts and senior analysts before they move into management, and that's influence. How to persuade and influence people when you don't have the authority to tell them what to do because they aren't your direct report. This is one of the most useful skill sets that I like focused on as an IC, and it's also one of the trickiest to learn. Like, how can you influence people, especially above you, to do what you want to do, to follow your recommendations, without there being like a big stick to whack them? This is something that I've noticed is really important. I'm curious to ask the panel, influence as a skill, is this something that you think is important? And if so, like how did you learn it? Any advice or tips there?
It's definitely a skill, right? It's one of those maybe related to some of the other questions later on, but the sort of soft skills, some of the skills that's required when you are progressing through your CTI career. I think the term actionable intelligence always comes up, and that's when the real mature CTI teams are trying to drive the actions and the recommendations towards, better security practices overall. So sometimes those things are tactical wins. Sometimes they do require, difficult conversations with those above you, those below you, those, around you in other parts. So the ability to influence, the ability to communicate, clearly, I think is obviously one of those core skill sets of the tradecraft. Um, ultimately you have to have people like you as well. And so it's that relationship building that has to be there. I think credibility is a big part. So whether that's influence, you have to be credible in the eyes of your peers, in the eyes of some of the more technical teams in other parts of the bank, and show your knowledge and your understanding of some of the complex problems that come. Um, and then there's sort of basic tradecraft parts of influence, which is it's about impact and risk and being able to speak the business language. So whether that's the financial cost of the projects, whether that's the amount of money it saves long term, and that sort of persuasive bits and pieces, these are all sort of
Mm,
essential things I think is that comes in the management in the sort of senior leadership positions later on. So it is great to start building that up as a senior analyst and start having those conversations, deputising when you get the chance, and again, just learn from some of the other parts of the bank and what they're doing.
perfect. Thank you, Sam.
I just to add, I completely agree with what Sam said. I think one of the, I guess, useful tips that I could potentially provide around this as well that I've got myself is don't produce outputs, produce outcomes. Now, what that means is sometimes in CTI we get caught into writing that report, giving that intelligence out, and we miss the what if, so what, not sorry, not what if, the so what behind it, or we fail to sell it to the right stakeholders in the right way. So instead of saying, for example, hey, I identified this threat actor, or we recommend XYZ, portray that in what does that mean for the business? What does that mean for your stakeholders and for that senior leadership? So instead of saying, I recommend we implement X, saying, if we were to implement X, we would be resolving XYZ risk. if we weren't
Mm.
to do that, this is the residual risk, this is what would happen. So you're changing the way you're speaking. You're still saying the same thing, but you're just kind of selling and influencing that. You're selling that idea because you're speaking the language of what they understand and what the priorities are. So don't focus on the output itself. Focus more
Hmm.
on what the outcome of the output is. What's the so what behind it?
I absolutely love that.
I'll amplify that a little bit too. The messaging becomes so crucial. So I'll give you an example here. I'm going to say the same thing 3 different ways, and you tell me how it resonates. Let's say Sam's my boss. Sam, you're wrong. People get defensive. Sam, I don't think I agree with that. Sam, have we considered? All 3 of those are different ways to communicate and successfully get softer in the approach.
Hmm.
So if you say something that's, that kind of first one up there, which is very direct, very brash, like people just instinctively go on the defensive. Whereas if you take a more softer approach to this, it's how do we collaborate? Like, where are we looking? And you have a chance to kind of get in and influence the direction of a decision or a conversation a bit easier. And I'll say, as a technical person who might be socially awkward, like I was more on that first side of the spectrum when I came in earlier in my career, and I was working with people who didn't have a shared technical background. And it took me a lot of time to learn the value of communicating a bit softer and not something more engineering focused, where I could be a little more direct about my thoughts, which was more natural for me. Also,
Great
Sam, you're
answer
not
there.
wrong. I'm just going to say that right there.
And I appreciate the example and giving us like three different frames. You're absolutely right. Like there's that great expression. It's not what you say, it's how you say it. I see we've all come across that one before. So another audience question, and we've got a ton of these. Thank you so much to everyone who's been posting questions. We'll get to as many of these as we can. The question that pops out is, what are hard skills you would expect a strong senior analyst to have in their belt? So this is open to the audience. Sorry, panelists.
For me, the sort of, I think, in the article that we wrote, there was different sort of criteria and different things. I think it's almost like a tick list, but as a senior analyst, is one the biggest thing I would say is don't rush it either in terms of that move from senior analyst to leadership, because you know, my view is that the senior analyst job is the best job in CTI. I think once you do go into those sort of management positions, it does change, and you do move away from some of the fun tradecraft and stuff that you love to do. So one thing is just make sure that when you are moving into the leadership, the management positions, that's because you actually want to manage and lead people as well. Um, but I think some of those things usually is experience in incidents or experience in running operations, deputizing for your leadership teams, having a really good knowledge of the organisation you're working for, and you've made the most of the opportunities to expand into the other projects the bank's doing, understanding what the bank's vision is and the priorities and all those kind of sometimes boring things, but actually it really ties in later on in terms of when you're trying to do some of the things we spoke about in that influence session. So those are probably some of the bits, and then I think it's kind of like, are you able to mentor and develop those around you, your peers? Are you able to offer the value and the expertise and all the experience on incidents or threat reports or whatever it might be? It's kind of almost like the seniority kind of comes naturally, and I think that's where you shouldn't rush it. It's almost like you can feel it, and then it's about a simple decision about is that when's the right time to go and do the next part of your journey, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that those are some crucial points for folks to reflect on when it comes to that move from from senior analyst into a management role. Um, just like at the precipice of making that jump, are there any hard skills, John or Bianca, that you think a senior analyst absolutely needs?
Bianca, you want to go first?
I can do. I think it's, yeah, just kind of echoing what Sam said. I think when you move from analyst to senior analyst, your manager will already have an expectation of you to kind of almost be that bridge between them and the people on the ground, so to say. So there is a level of expectations when you're a senior analyst to be able to articulate risk, or at least kind of understand projects, understand what the business needs, what the direction of travel is, what the goals of the team, the strategies. And then when you move that into management, that expectation obviously is by default there, but that's already kind of starting to be expected, I see, at senior analyst positions. And it's almost like translating or being that bridge between you and the rest of the business. So I've always seen CTI as kind of a mid team that kind of you're in the middle of very technical, SOC response, IOCs, all of that, malware analysis, threat hunting, all of that interesting stuff. And then the more kind of important other cyber areas like supplier risk, information security, data privacy, but a little bit less technical. So you're kind of in the middle, and you need to be able to translate things. You need to be able to be the bridge to explain, actually, we've seen this within the SOC, and so that's why privacy wise we need to focus on XYZ. So I see that as being important already at senior analyst role, but even more so obviously moving into management. So I guess that'd be for me, it's being that bridge, being that translator between different worlds. And that takes being able to understand risk, understand the company, be curious about what other teams do. I think Sam mentioned it before, but to me personally, subjectively, I think what makes a really good person and kind of what makes a good analyst, and it takes an analyst from being a good analyst to the go-to person, is being proactive and being curious. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, to put your hands up, to say, actually, I don't know how to do this, but I'll give it a go. Or let me shadow a team for a week or two and see how they do things. Just having that curiosity in mind, giving it a go, seeing not being able to make mistakes and fail, because that means you're trying. That for me is what I would be looking for in a senior analyst, and then someone who wants to move into management as well.
I love that, and I think you've absolutely hit on a central point. To get really good at CTI, I think it's so important to understand the whole forest, not just the tree, and to understand that CTI is a function inside of a larger information security department that's inside of a larger business, and understanding the context outside of just CTI is so important. And you mentioned a phrase, being the go-to person on the team. What else can senior analysts or analysts do to signal that they are the go-to person, or to become that go-to person? And John, I'm going to start with you here.
It's mentorship. It's making yourself available, trying to tear down walls, trying to help create bridges from where silos exist. So really kind of tipping your hand in to help out where you can. And I think, Josh, your point that you just made there about the forest, it's not just understanding kind of the full business acumen and how everything aligns there. It's also understanding skills across the team and knowing when to flag opportunities for others. Because often at the more senior levels, you're being brought into conversations about strategy and direction and what's on the horizon, or if something comes in, maybe asked for guidance on who do you think would be a good fit to work something like this. And that's the chance to advocate in the background for different individuals. And that shows. It shows quite a bit once you're doing it, when people understand what and how, and making sure that you're that trusted source who can help look out for others, absent of somebody in a leadership role who needs to focus on other things and has finite time.
Interesting. So start to be the person that's looking out for others on the team. Almost act like a manager, or like a sub manager. I like that. So that focuses on how you become like a standout person inside of your CTI team. But let's think about people who are trying to move CTI team. And there's a question here from the audience I really like. In your experience, what is the X factor that separates a good CTI applicant from a standout CTI applicant when applying to, let's say, a Fortune 500 company? Bianca, do you want to kick us off with this question?
Very good question. I think it's a very subjective question in a way. For different managers, I guess, will look for different skills and personalities and aptitudes. For me personally, when and speaking just from a perspective of, let's say you're applying to a role, right? So interview stage. For me personally, is how you come across, what's your attitude in the interview, and generally at work as well. But what's that attitude like? How do you face challenges? How do you face feedback? How do how do you respond to negative situations, or to hard questions, or to feedback, or to just generally, what's your attitude? Is it tending to be quite positive and seeing the optimist side of things and kind of, actually trying to learn something from it? Or do you get a bit more defensive or say, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure I can do this? Are you honest and open? And again, in interviews as well, if we're talking interview wise, and you get a question and you don't know the answer to, I would just always say, don't fake it. Don't get AI to answer it for you. Don't fake it. Just be honest and open and say, I don't know, but I'm happy to learn. So for me, it's the attitude. It's the feel of the person when you talk to them. Yes, the skills themselves are important as well. Have you done this in the past? Can you do this? Can you do that? But actually the softer skills, and I know this is mentioned over and over again, but it is so important. The soft skills are so important, and your attitude to work is so important. I think it's just it is one of the things that can put people off as well. So it goes both ways. It can either make you the go-to person, or on the other side, right, that actually I'm not really sure I want to work with this person because they're always negative. They always look for problems but never bring a solution, or so it can really go both ways. So yeah, that's for me personally, I think that's what I look at the most, because the technical skills can be learned, and I come from a non-technical background, and I jump from CTI to security engineering having no idea what the hell I'm doing, and you learn it. It's fine. But the attitude is something that is more difficult to mold, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. And that's one of the reasons I like the reframing of soft skills into core skills. And when I think about my hiring, it's the thing that I always look for is attitude, but then also, does that person show initiative? Because it's so tricky to teach initiative, but it's so, so, so important. Sam, John, when it comes to you hiring, what standout X factor skills do you look for?
Actually, if I can piggyback off this one, for what you just said there, the initiative element. There's been some candidates I've been interviewing recently who have come in and they're like, "Oh, I've never heard of a hypergraph before, or synapse, but I did some research in advance of the interview, and I went out and I, pulled down a demo instance, and I had a chance to really test the waters." That stands out so much. Like, if you want to make yourself differentiated across the pool of applicants, showing that you've done your homework in advance of an interview goes a very long way.
Excellent. Excellent point there. Sam, any final thoughts?
Yeah, no. When you mentioned initiative, Josh, that's exactly the one I was thinking about. And I totally agree that sometimes it's the feel of the person, the culture, the fit. It has to fit with the team. The things I look for is passion, and that, I think it does interplay with all these other things, but it's that, the love of what you do. Because the types of organizations I work for, the tempo is really high, it's in demand, we need hard workers, and you're never going to last unless you have that passion and that drive. So I think passion, ambition, initiative, be able to demonstrate that, be able to, it almost oozes out of you. You can see it. I think those are really, really important. I don't know if I think it. I agree with Bianca. It's going to be subjective. Each time it's going to be different. But those are the things. I think initiative and ambition is probably the two things I would look for straight away.
Excellent. Excellent. And I think that there's a theme here I can detect between us. So we have a ton of audience questions. Keep them coming in, because if we can't answer them during this webinar, we will give the questions to the panelists, and we'll type up responses after the webinar. So if you have questions, they will get answered. It might just not be live right now, but we will get to them. With the 10 minutes left, I want to talk more about the realities of management and leadership, and then forward looking and how people can sustain a long-term career and be successful beyond just the short and medium term. So, the first question that I want to ask is when you moved into management, what changed the most, and did you have any surprises that you didn't see coming? So, John, over to you.
Yeah, biggest change and realization for me was moving away from the substance and then realize you're not moving away from the substance, you're just going in a different area. I
Hmm.
now get to review the work that my team puts out. I also run a few service lines, so I get to review the work that my consultants also put out. And I've actually been able to grow more technically than I thought I would. With the going notion that if you go into a people management role, you're going to be abstracted from doing heavy threat research. And while that's true, you have different role responsibilities and job duties. You, in a lot of ways, do, if you've got a strong team in particular, have the ability to grow a lot more than you may have thought in your very focused series of expertise.
Love it. And this is a slightly different question, but what is your most favorite and least favorite thing about management or leadership? Bianca, do you want to start us off?
Oh, the hardest question to me. Um, I think so. There's there's lots of things, to be honest, that I love about being a manager. It's the people side of things, it's developing people, it's being able to offer the opportunity to learn new things and seeing where people go and being, almost that driver force of supporting someone get where they want to be. That feels very rewarding to me personally, helping out my
Hmm.
team and being there for them and my team's well-being and their continued happiness in the team, etc. That's all really important for me as a manager. That also comes with less fun bits. So the management side, on the people side, when there are difficulties and there are hard decisions to make and hard conversations to have, these are very difficult times. I don't think it's ever easy, to be honest, for a manager to go through that and to have those difficult conversations. But it's important, right? So it is part of leadership. It is part of what you have to do to get there. But yeah, it goes both ways to me, in terms of I love it, and it's also the part that I don't like is the people side. I also just love the kind of decision making side of things as well.
Hmm.
So just generally making decisions, being able to kind of piece things together, like John said as well. Also figure I also found that I actually learned a lot by being a manager. So it wasn't a case of actually I've learned less. I think I've learned a lot more, because he allowed me to see more in a way, give me more visibility, so then I could draw more dots together and be the decision maker and see the impact of my decisions and kind of learn from that and adjust and help the team grow through that. So yeah, those would be mine, I think.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for kicking us off then. You raised some great points. Um, Sam, John, what's your most favorite, least favorite thing about management and leadership?
I mean, there's obvious ones. I think we talked about this before, but you've got a certain portion of your time that then is quite a big portion of that is dedicated towards managing your team, and that's often doing admin, boring admin, reporting, those types of things. I think everyone who's been in those positions understands that's part and parcel of the job, and it's not just something that I doubt anyone enjoys. One of the biggest things I found, this is quite a good one, is uh, I don't know how to say this without upsetting somebody, but it's basically when you get to a certain position, I find that your team takes a lot of credibility for maybe some of the stuff and you've done. I find that hard to adjust from the guy that produces the products that then goes all the way to the top or that gets all the accolade and praise to managing a team that does that. And usually it's the analyst, rightly so, that gets all the sort of kudos for it. And I think sometimes as in when you get into senior management, you don't often get that sort of pat on the back. And one of your kind of KPIs is how well your team is performing individually as well as collectively. So you kind of always know when you're doing a good job, and maybe there'll be, um, you know, references to it. I think you get your merit in a different way, but I found that quite hard to adjust sometimes from being the one who produces the product to then having a team where you've influenced it, you've directed it, you've given that vision, but rightly so, the analyst gets the praise and the kudos. So for me, that was one of the interesting things that I kind of struggled sometimes with. So I thought that's maybe a different take on the question, right?
No, that's a really interesting response. Huh. So you get less of the limelight and have to kind of give the spotlight over to the team. John, anything else to add here?
How do you feel about meetings? No, in all seriousness, when you when you move into a people management role or even a leadership role, your time becomes more consumed by meetings, and
Mm,
most of them are important. It just means that you have to find ways to more effectively multitask to still get the grooming, the mentorship, the helping align and set your team up for success in place, while also trying to roll out on different initiatives. It just becomes a battle of how do you spend your time? For example, like I had 14 meetings the other day, and I got off a call at the end of the day, just looking exhausted. And my wife's like, "What's wrong?" I was like, "It's just been a long day and a lot of meetings." And she's like, "What's wrong with you?" I was like, "Such is the life we've chosen."
That's a very good one. I take mine back and I use John's as well. Meetings. Yeah,
Meetings.
I agree. That's my least favorite bit as well.
Yeah. Do you like HR admin and meetings and managements for you? I love that. It's such a shame we only have 3 minutes left because like I could keep talking about these topics for another hour. But let's think about looking ahead. So CTI, this is a high burnout, high pressure, high intense career path. We all want to have like long, successful careers. We want to stay motivated. How do you deal with burnout? And especially the 14 meetings, John. Yeah, how do you deal with burnout to ensure that you can have a long, sustainable, healthy career? And John, I'm going to start with you since you seem to be dealing with some pretty intense scheduling right now.
Um, Not well. I think this is an area that nobody has
Yeah.
perfected, and everybody is constantly working at it and finding ways to help their own situation out.
Hmm.
I've found more healthy mechanisms to kind of cope and deal with it, and going out and being around people. Concerts are a big thing for me, so going to
Mm,
a rock show and getting to experience live music, like that helps rejuvenate me. See more professionally, like seeing the team succeed and helping them, and even hearing myself when I say like, hey, there's going to be slow times, there's going to be fast times. It's slow right now. Take the time, go,
mm,
do some research, like go spend time with your family. There's going to be times where it's going to be more demanding. It's going to be high paced. Like you're going to have to flex at those times. It's all going to be net. Just go do it. It resonates with me as I'm saying it out loud. Um,
mm.
so yeah, we're all work in progress, man, on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, I appreciate your candor, and live music events are definitely one that helps me deal with the stress as well. Sam.
I think it's a really important question, a really important topic because burnout in cyber is a real thing, right? If I compare, maybe it's because I'm older and more weary, war weary of one way or the other, but if I compare the sort of some of the military operations I worked in, which were literally life and death situations, I have to say my cyber career feels much more intense and high tempo and stressful than some of those experiences I had.
Mm,
So I think it's not to be taken lightly. I think it is one of the most stressful career paths that probably exist at the moment. Um, and I think it kind of loops back into, I think one of the things that we need to do and get better at in CTI and cyber in general is actually telling people when they're doing a good job and having that feedback, and that really builds confidence and it really helps generate momentum. So I think that's some of the things that I found really works and helps is when people know that they're doing a good job. It's that motivation and finding the opportunities to reward people one way or the other. So, salaries, whether that's, a day off here or whatever, the fun bits and pieces, the conferences and, speaking at a black hat in Vegas or something like that, all these little things are ways that we can reward people for the hard work. So I think we need to build that in better into to making sure we're managing people effectively. And then I think
Mhm.
it's the basics, right? So John talked about, rock concerts. I like, a metal concert here and there. But it's the physical activity as well, looking after your physical body as well as your mind. So making sure that whatever it is, whatever the activity is, whether it's the gym, whether it's just a walk at lunchtime to clear the head, I think it's really, really important that we look after ourselves physically when you're burning out mentally.
Yeah, 100%.
I
I would
think, sorry,
crumble.
I was just gonna
I'm sorry.
say, from jumping on from Sam's point around work at lunchtime and taking care
Hmm.
of yourself, protect your time, protect your diary, I think, and it comes back to what John said around meetings as well, and that's more important as you start having more meetings as well. But it's important at any time, finish at 5. It's not gonna make you a better analyst if you finish at 7. Just, use your time well, protect your time when it's 5 o'clock, go. Things can be finished tomorrow, or things can be prioritized, or it can be done. Obviously there are times when you can't, and that's absolutely fine, but try to finish at 5. 5 is a time when I'm very strict on, actually this is now my time. I've worked, I've done my time. This is my protected time. And put stuff in your diary, block out your lunches, go for a walk,
Mm.
meetings in, and protect that time, and say, no, I can't actually have a 5-minute call, I can't do the meeting right now because this is my time for a walk. It feels very strange saying that to people at first. I realize that. And it's very awkward sometimes when someone asks for a meeting and you say, actually, not really, I can't, because, you don't have to give a reason. But I encourage giving that reason as well, because that creates that culture. Actually, this is my protected time. I need a walk right now, and then we can catch up after I'm back. So that's the biggest thing for me, is protect your diary and manage your time effectively around your personal time.
If I could just
Amazing. I
quickly
think,
piggyback on that one,
yeah,
Josh, for one second.
crack
I know
on.
you're trying to wrap up.
No, no, it's all
I
good.
I feel like especially at the earlier grades, when you're getting into any career, there's this self-imposed pressure that you're not performing at the same as your peers on the team. Don't work 12-hour days. Like
Yeah.
you're at a junior role for that reason. It's not expected of you. A lot of us do it because we're high performers. Don't do it. It's not going to help you advance quicker. Protect yourself, protect your time. Don't get yourself to burn out quicker than you have to.
Yeah.
Mm. And I think that is a fantastic note to end on. Set boundaries, protect your time, and think about the long term. Like you can't sprint your entire career. Um, this has been a really, really interesting conversation. Thank you all very much for your time. And thanks to the audience. These questions are fantastic, and we will get to them, and we'll send you some responses after the webinar along with this recording. So just a big thank you to everyone for your time today, and a special thank you to John, Sam, and Bianca. You're extremely busy people, and you made time to come on and have this conversation with us. So a sincere thank you. With that, I'll wrap us up. Thanks to everyone, and we'll catch you in the next CTI session, which will be on March 4th, where we're going to talk about cybercrime, trends, and tradecraft. So, goodbye for now.
And so.
Cheers all.
Expect